I have to apologise to Daniel.
Has he finally removed all doubt about whether he is a quitter?
He's learned his lesson. Daniel, his tactics, as far as I'm concerned, were spot on. I need to get this boy mad. He gave him a little gangster slap.
Should it have been stopped earlier?
No. I think the referee did a great job. To blame the referee or to think it was some kind of conspiracy theory, if anything, you think the referee was more on Fabio's side because he gave him that many chances. If there's anything, the responsibility with the corner.
Can he keep doing this again and again and again?
I'd be very surprised if he said, I'm done. I'd be very surprised.
Hello and welcome to this episode of The Hook, where we dissect Fabio Wardley versus Daniel Dubois and get stuck in to bare-knuckle boxing with Paulie Malignaggi and Darren Till. Johnny Nelson, gonna start with Fabio Wardley, Daniel Dubois. Should it have been stopped earlier?
Wow. First of all, big props to both fighters. Absolute props to both fighters, of course. Should it have been stopped, in my opinion? No. I think the referee did a great job. He dropped one clanger, human error, which I think was around 7, where the clanger went to indicate it was 10 seconds before the bell would go. Confusion, everybody did it. There was no conspiracy theory like, Wardley's corner insinuating, as far as I'm concerned. I think the fight itself, I actually feel for Daniel Dubois because he won. And we're all singing from the rooftops about how brave and how outstanding Fabio was. He was outstanding, what he showed. It's something you can't buy, borrow, pretend to have, something you're born with. The guts, the courage, the want, the desire. It actually reminded me of, remember when, you don't remember, Joe Frazier and Ali first fought. The build-up was that big. This was personal. Nobody was going anywhere. They thought we're having this. Ali lost. But that build-up, that intense build-up, it had you on the edge of the seat, and this is what that fight was all about. Daniel Dubois and Fabio Wardley had sparred previously on many occasions, and Daniel Dubois always had the top side of him. And for Daniel Dubois, you see how he thinks, you see how he speaks, you see how he is. He's very simple, looks at things very simply. And he'd have thought, you can't beat me because I know you can't. Which is why he stuck to such a stubborn determination of attack. Every time Fabio threw a shot, he'd step in with a shot and jab him off balance. And it kind of threw Fabio's shots off a bit. They were swinging, they were missing. Fabio took the reins the first half of the fight, and I think he did a brilliant job in it. But then when he got hurt, really hurt, that's when he lost his shape from round 6. That's when the drama started from round 6.
Before we get into the tactical side of things for both Fabio and Daniel, you mentioned there about the referee with the stoppage. Now, I want to break down the controversy around the stoppage into 3 sections: the referee, the corner, and Fabio himself.
Okay.
Now, with the referee, Howard Foster, people are saying that potentially he could have stopped it earlier. Now, he's been in scenarios before where people have accused him of stopping fights too early, obviously Carl Froch and George Groves being one of them. He was also the referee for Fabio Wardley, Joseph Parker. Do you think he got it right at the right time, or do you think there was scope for him stopping it earlier? He
had the opportunity to stop it earlier. He didn't take it. And if you look at Howard Foster all the time, his eyes were on Fabio's eyes. He didn't take his eyes off him watching him. Because you see when the eyes switch off, you see when the fight is in distress, you see when you're up close and personal. I've watched it over and over again. Howard Foster did his job and did a good job. Watch the fighter, watch it again. When they part, his eyes are on Fabio. Looking at his feet, looking at his stance, looking at his stagger, looking how he is. Then Fabio, just as the referee's about to step in to say, whoa, Fabio comes back again. So he took away the excuses to stop it then. But each time it happened, the referee kept watching him, called the doctor in to say, look, I'm in a situation here. Take the decision out of my hand. The doctors come in. They look at Fabio. They're speaking to Fabio, looking at the eyesight. Can you see how many things they've got up? Look at the cut. It's not too bad. It's not life-threatening. The blood's not actually going into the eye. Fabio can see. So they get and they're saying, "Are you all right? Can you fight?" They listen to how he answers, because many fighters say, "Yeah, I'm okay. I can carry on." Like, I can't really carry on. Pull me out. And so that's ego. I think the referee did his job and he did it well. He did a good job. So to blame the referee or to think it was some kind of conspiracy theory, if anything, you think the referee was more on Fabio's side than he was on Daniel's side, because he gave him that many chances to stay in the fight and he had that many opportunities to pull him out of the fight. So in reality, that conspiracy theory is completely out the window. I think we've got a little soft. You get into a fight, someone's in trouble, stop it. This is the fight game. You know, if somebody cannot defend themselves, then you stop it. But if someone's in a tear-up, a life and death tear-up, that's what they're there for. The referee gave him a champion's blight to say, look, I'm giving you the opportunity. You got to prove to me you're all right here.
Yeah, I think the fact that he was throwing back at points was almost why he felt that he could let the fight continue. But is there not a point where, okay, he's throwing back, but it is just aimlessly throwing at this point, or does that not matter because he is throwing?
Not really, because now and again when he caught Daniel, he hurt Daniel. And Daly was shattered, you know, to me, I just thought, there was always the danger there. Only twice when I saw him kind of wilt at the ropes, but then he came back. I thought, and he came back before the referee could even jump in to pull him in. He came back in the fight, and the referee's like, he's all right here. He'd switch off and switch back on again. So for Fabio, because we're talking about him at the moment, I think he's gone up in the estimation of the old school snobbery in fighters to think this guy's come from white collar. It's hard to give him respect. I give him maximum respect because what he did, you have to be born with. You don't learn it in the gym. It's not something that anybody can instill in you. What he did, any fighter, regardless of how long he's been in that game, will respect him because he showed a tenacity, a want, a desire, a hunger that most champions don't have.
Yeah. You mentioned the doctors testing ringside. They obviously brought Fabio over to have a little look at him. I mean, I know the blood wasn't here, it was below the eyes, but it was absolutely streaming. The doctor lifted up his nose, it looked like it was basically disintegrated. And from about the 6th round, he was fighting out of one eye.
Yeah, he was.
How does he pass that test?
So if you watch again, when he goes to the corner, the camera's there, the doctor said, how many fingers I've got up? 5, 3, and he counted, he covered the eye, and he could see. It might be that much, but he could see. And so as long as he could see out of that eye, they had no excuse to stop him. If he said, I can't see it, the fight was done. The fight would have been over. The responsibility was the corner. If there's anything, the responsibility with the corner. And they've come in a lot of flack, the corner. And unfortunately, in our sport, when you're high, you're going to take the praise. When you're low, you're going to get the stick. So right now, the corner's going to get the stick. Now, I heard Ben Davidson say we're thinking about getting it. It should have been stopped early. For him to say that, like, all right, then you've accepted that, but whose responsibility was it?
Yeah, because he made that point in the fact that people were talking about before the 10th round, when Fabio walked over to the doctor to go and be examined, he stumbled as he walked. And that for everyone was alarm bells ringing, the fact that he's stumbling whilst going over to be examined by the doctor. Ben Davison said on his social media afterwards that that's when they were turned and discussing whether to throw the towel in or not, so they didn't see the stumble. But surely someone has to have eyes on Fabio kind of at all times.
But what about when he walked back to the corner after the 10th, and it was 9th or the 10th, and he was holding on to rope, he's staggering, he's dragging his feet on the floor. They're looking at him coming back to the corner. They're seeing the shellacking he's getting. And so even though they're thinking there's a 10% chance you can still pull this out of the bag, there's a 90% chance he's getting a battering. So the responsibility, unfortunately, was on the voice in the corner.
We are going to go on to Daniel in a second. One of the arguments in support of Ben and Team Wardley was the fact that Fabio almost fights his best when he's hurt, but there's a level of being hurt, and I feel like it was well past the fine line of right, he's been hurt, but he can fight back.
Hindsight's a great thing, and you look at that and you think, wow, it was getting worse and worse. Round 6, round 7, round 8, round 9, round 10. It was getting worse, and so even though they thought that percentage of his comeback kept dropping lower and lower and lower, and so I get it. I understand. You've got to listen to the head over the heart. You've got to think. You know, we believe this guy can do this. But when somebody is getting that much of a shellacking, you've got to think. I've got to make a decision here. I've got to cut loose. And unfortunately, they made the wrong decision. If he'd have turned around and knocked Daniel out in the 11th round, everybody would have gone absolutely mad. What a warrior. Nobody would have questioned you actually should have pulled him out because the rewards are far too high. But he didn't. So, the one thing that was important was that there was oxygen ringside for him after the fight. The one thing that's important is that I hope he went to the hospital and spent the night in the hospital so they could monitor and watch him. The one thing that's important is the long-term effects that fight has on him. I do think he'll fight again. And I know there was a rematch clause because that was his voluntary defence saying he picked Daniel. So he picked. Yeah, so I do think I do think he'll take that rematch clause. He'll want it. So his advisors might say no. He'll want it because the kind of guy that we saw fighting is the kind of guy that saying no, I'm back there again. Get me in.
Fabio has a tendency for getting into these wars. We've seen it time and time again. Can he keep doing this again and again and again? You said you think he'll box again.
The character of man was shown Saturday night. I'd be very surprised if he said that's me done. I'd be very surprised, regardless of... Listen, most of us wouldn't want to be in that ring Saturday night doing what he did. So he thinks on a completely different level. And as I said, what he showed there, you're born with. So I'd be very surprised if he said, I'm done. I'd be very surprised. And my only worry of this fight was he had the ability to think in a ring. Daniel had the ability to remember in the ring. Daniel remembers what he used to do to him, and he's never forgotten that, which is why Daniel wouldn't let go. He's like a dog with a bone. It's like, I'm having you. I remember I would dealt with you before. When Daniel having the ability to, Fabio having the ability to think in the ring, you can't think about things you don't know. So they didn't give him enough arsenal to say, right, try plan B.
Do you think because he had such early success, I mean, he knocked Daniel down within the first 12 seconds of the fight, he knocked him down again in the third round. So obviously those big overhand rights that he's landing, but because he had the success with them, it felt like that's kind of all he then threw.
Yeah, but remember, his shape didn't change. So he didn't start punching himself out. He still carried on going for the mark. And remember, the shots he threw landed behind the ear on the temple. The first one skimmed the top of the head. The second one set it with a jab, good shot. It was the one behind the ear that put him down. So is it legal? We don't know, but he still got the shot off and got him down. But he still kept cool. He still kept it together until he got hurt, and that's when his shape changed.
Well, on to Daniel Dubois now. Has he finally removed all doubt about whether he is a quitter?
I have to apologise to Daniel because I think I've accused him of that, having that in him. And I think, looking at Daniel, I thought, you know what, this guy just thinks differently from us. I think this guy, when he's in a situation, he's learned his lesson. Now, he could have been all macho in the third round when he got put down and staggered on to say, I'm not going to jump on the floor because they're all going to say I'm a quitter. He didn't care. He thought, oh, that hurt, right, let me get a breather. And because he did that, that's why he won the fight. Because he could have stayed on his feet like Fraser Clark did and try and fight back and got punched out, but he didn't. He took the breather, created the space. When he created the space, he had time to think, right then, get my head clear, I'm back in the game again. I
mean, going down there in the first 12 seconds of the fight, surely some sort of PTSD must have kicked in at that point.
No, I think you know when you're hitting her, you know you're hitting her. When you've got a shot knocked down, then you think, oh, I can deal with that. You know, you got lucky. Let's see what you got. So when you're her, you can always see the difference. And I think Daniel, his tactics, as far as I'm concerned, was spot on. Whereas when Fabio threw his shot, he stepped in with a stiff jab, which is like a flushed right hand. And he put Fabio off the mark where Fabio's shots were swinging and missing. Maybe 50-50 up until the sixth round. And he had to do that. Instead of backing off, he was offensive, step forward. So for Fabio, he wasn't used to that. He was used to punching someone in position and then setting the shot up. So the tactics from both Daniel and Don Charles worked perfectly.
Talking of Don Charles, did you see after the third round he gave Daniel that slap?
Yeah,
like
so
the
he should have done.
1-2. But I mean, he was obviously with Tony Sims, went back to Don Charles. Only Don, I feel like, could get that out of Daniel.
So Daniel left Don, and I felt for Don. I'm thinking, you took this boy to a world championship level. That's a big disrespect that's gone on there. But then he came back to him. So now Don's thinking, right, you know what? I can either be his mate or his master. I know how I have to treat this young man in the ring. I see how his dad is with him to get the best out of him. So his dad, you know, his dad's more of a silent background now. He's like, right, I'm out of this. So what Don did was right. I remember he came back to the corner at one point and he said, "Are you okay?" When he got put down, first of all, "Are you okay?" "Yeah, I'm okay." Bah, 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 and then give him a mouthful. So he checked to see if he's okay. Now he knew when Daniel was getting slack, I need to get this boy mad. He gave him a little gangster slap, and you saw Daniel look at him at that glare.
It was almost like the nod to be like,
as if to like, all right, I'm here, you're gonna get it, but you'll get it first. And this is what he wanted to draw out of him. He wanted to draw that aggression, that anger, that red mist out of him to remind him what he's there for.
Shane McGuigan was saying about Daniel's red mist, and sometimes at the start of the fight he goes into the red mist and he just goes all guns blazing and almost neglects the technical side of things. I feel like we did see a little bit of that on Saturday, the fact that he got sucked into the war with Fabio, and as soon as he got the slap and he got told to box behind the jab and take his time and be patient with setting up his shots rather than just the war that we saw in the beginning. I mean, the whole thing was a war, but more so of a war in the beginning. He dominated the rest of the fight as soon as he thought tactically rather than aggressively.
I think it's a fine balance. You need the red mist, but you need to be controlling the red mist. And so he's just thinking, I just want to smash his face in. I want your red mist, but I need you to set it up. Set it up and let hellfire go. And let hellfire go. I remember fighting a guy called Martin Murray in Manchester, and he was a heavyweight. I was a cruiserweight, stepped in to fight him, and Brendan stepped in, and I'm swinging. We're both swinging, just missing each other. And Brendan came back to the corner and said, "Johnny, you're going to get knocked out. Think about what you're doing. Put him on the jab, set it off at the jab." So when you get drawn into those arguments, you forget all the things you've trained to do in the gym. This is why fighters, they talk garbage to each other before. I want you to hate me. So when you see me, you want to just smash my face in.
Yeah,
you forget about throwing 20 jabs, 15 body shots. I want you to just jump on me. And both fighters got drawn into it. I think Fabio conducted himself brilliantly before the fight. I think Daniel probably didn't have the wave of expectation from the public because he wasn't capable of vocalising his intentions of what he wanted, because he's not that guy. And Fabio could have really took the mickey, but he didn't.
Yeah.
He just, there's a few slide digs, but he didn't. And so therefore the public kind of got behind Fabio to say, this kid's got it, because he's saying all these things, where Daniel's like, he's very as simple as to say, look, I just want to fight you. I've got nothing to say. I'm not playing that game. And he'd not got drawn in, and Don had to remind him, get back to the game plan. You're not playing it. You're not dancing his dance. Yeah.
Talking about the simplicity of Daniel and his motivations, just getting in there and fighting. There was a clip that went out afterwards of him with the belt, and he walked into the dressing room, two-time heavyweight world champion. Everyone's obviously cheering and wooing and starting the celebrations. He just ignores everyone, just walks straight to his dad and hands him the belt.
Yeah, I get that. And it's what's important to you. And it might be a bigger deal to everybody else in regards to getting the belt, in regards to getting in the ring, getting the win. It's what you cherish that's important to you. He wanted the blessing of his own man to say, Dad, I've done it.
OK, so Daniel Dubois is two-time heavyweight world champion. What's next for him? Because before the fight, there was all the talk about Alexander Usyk being the cherry and the carrot being dangled. Daniel's been in there twice. He's lost to Alexander Usyk twice, and both convincingly. I don't think his team will want to put him back in for a third opportunity with Alexander Usyk. Maybe they will. Correct me if you believe that they will. Mm-hmm. If they don't, where does he go? What does he do?
I don't think the Usyk fight is the most fanciful fight. If it was I'd either try and get him with Tyson Fury, big scalp. Anthony Joshua's looking over the hill thinking, you beat me, and can I beat you? Can I do it? Can I get people to believe I can do you again? So they're two big fights for him. The other fighters are tied up under the same promotional banner, as far as I'm aware. Moses Atamu. Most of the heavyweights, the decent ones, are all under the same. These fights can be made. I'd actually put Moses Atamu in with Fabio Wardley, because that's like a really. I was watching thinking, man, that's a wicked fight that is. But then for Daniel, you've got to think tactically. And think, right, how do we do this? Where do we put him? And what's the biggest pull we could get? Tyson Fury's a perfect pull. Obviously, which we expected the night of the fight, Ring Magazine and Tyson put a something out. Big news coming. Always happens. Always happens every time there's a big show. And like, all right, here we go. So everybody's got used to the play. Obviously, that's what it is. And I know they're teasing the Usyk, Tyson, Fury thing, but it's an obvious play now. What's happening? So people are kind of looking over that, and Tyson always pops his head above it when there's a big fight and say, "Look at me, I'm here."
Yeah.
So people they know that game now. But I think for Daniel, I'd say Tyson Fury or Anthony Joshua, and I'm quite sure he's a heavyweight champion. So why would they not want that? And for Fabio, I'd say Moses Atamo. And of course, the chances of this happening are very slim because Frank's trying to keep his.
Also, Moses in with Ben Davison as well, so they have that.
Yeah, but again, so Fabio's got 2 coaches, and many times, you've got guys that have trained together, they end up fighting each other. And does he spend more time with Ben or his other coach? We don't know.
Yeah.
So these fights could happen, and I'm quite sure if there's 2 guys at the same weight, there's a possibility you might fight each other, even though we're friends.
Yeah.
So there are some good potential fights on the horizon.
I think that Tyson Fury or Anthony Joshua, even the winner of that fight, is a real potential for Daniel. But that's a long time before that fight could happen. AJ's fighting again in July. Then they're hoping to have that fight between Tyson and AJ in September, October.
And Tyson's talking about having another fight.
Exactly. So by the time that happens, Daniel will have been out the ring for ages. So one of the guys that's sitting there and waiting very politely and kindly is Ajit Kabayel. Yeah. I know he's got one eye on what happens between Usyk and Rico Verhoeven. You would think Usyk wins that quite convincingly or easily, and then a potential fight between the 2 of them. But if that's not on the cards, could we see Daniel and Ajit?
We could, but again, this is show business, and the business side of it, he's going to think they've got it. I'm sure Frank will think what makes best business for my fighter. There are many fights out there that'll be great shows, but what makes best business? Now, on Saturday night you saw great business and you had a great show. It was a great fight, and everybody and anybody and his uncle wanted to watch this fight to see what he would turn out like. Kabayel, is it great business, or is there better business to be made out there? No offence to Kabayel, but I think there is. I think there are bigger fights out there for him. And Kabayel will be thinking, I want Usyk. So really, Daniel, great, but I'm looking at this guy here.
Before we pick up on the rest of the heavyweight division with that Tyson Fury tease / announcement / stealing the spotlight again, and Anthony Joshua as well returning to the ring, we caught up with Paulie Malignaggi. So let's see what he had to say about Fabio Wardley versus Daniel Dubois and Bare-knuckle. Paulie, thanks for coming on to The Hook and speaking with us. You're back in action this weekend for Bare-knuckle, but before we talk about Bare-knuckle, Johnny and I have just been discussing Fabio Wardley versus Daniel Dubois on the weekend. What was your initial thoughts of that fight?
That was something extravagant, violent, fight of the year candidate for sure. That was edge of your seat type of stuff, guys. We expected a good fight. I think we expected an explosive fight. I think everybody did. I did not expect it to drag out for that long. So the fact that it dragged out for that long and was fought in the manner that was sort of expected. I think when you expect a fight to be dragged out and fought in that manner, you don't expect it to last long, especially with 2 big punchers. But the fact that it lasted as long as it did with 2 big punches was, it was. As I said after the broadcast, I was humbled by the effort of those 2 guys. That was really, really something.
Talking about how long it went on, that's been one of the topics of conversation. Do you think it should have been stopped earlier?
I don't. No, I don't. This is one of the risks of boxing. When a fight is competitive, you have no choice. You have to let it keep going. But Wardley is such a big puncher, and he was still swinging. He was still trying. He was still swinging. It was hard to save him from himself because there were moments where he was touching Dubois, and Dubois was feeling it as well. So, it was one of those moments where I think Errol Foster stopped it at the right time. And when it did come to it, in the moment that Wardley was at his most defenseless, I think Foster stepped in at the right time and stopped it.
Johnny made a really good point when we were talking about it earlier, that everybody's talking about Fabio Wardley. People aren't giving maybe Daniel enough credit off the back of this fight, which was a really good point that Johnny made. What do you think about that?
took a couple of good shots all of a sudden in random spots when you thought the fight was about to be stopped in his favor. All of a sudden, Wardley looked like in some spots he could change the momentum. And you got to credit Dubois for not allowing that momentum to change, for taking those shots and continuing to stay sturdy. And not only stay sturdy, but also, despite the massive fatigue, to continue to go for the gusto and go for the victory. Got to credit him, got to credit Wardley. I think it was a spectacular fight.
It was blood, guts and glory, and that makes me think of bare-knuckle, which obviously coming to you for this. What was it that drew you to bare-knuckle? Why would you want to get involved in that after such a successful boxing career? Why not just sit back, enjoy? Why go into bare-knuckle?
You know, have a goal to work towards, something that you know, keeps that disciplined mindset. I still enjoy. You know, I didn't think I would enjoy the work towards the fight as much as I have in the past year. You know, I thought that I missed just the fight night lights and hype and brightness and so on and so forth. But also, I do like to chase ambition and goals. And you know what? It's a big opportunity for me to chase this, chase a goal like this, chase a world championship in a second combat sport.
You talked there about the opportunity that it brings. On the flip side, the debate among people who maybe don't watch enough bare-knuckle, I'm not sure, but is about the health and the safety around bare-knuckle. What's your argument in terms of whether bare-knuckle is dangerous?
Internal injury, brain issues, those are the things that are more so a problem that could be complicated for fighters and for people involved in a sport, in any sport. But there is less of those complications in bare-knuckle. First of all, the fights are shorter. If you notice in professional boxing, fighters with traumatic brain issues wind up in long, dragged-out fights for the most part. Those are the guys that you know, like, for example, I was worried about Fabio Wardley at a certain point in the fight the other night, you know, because it was a long, dragged-out fight, right? So you know, a long, dragged-out fight where there's high contact usually is a risk. But none of those things are prevalent in bare-knuckle. You know, it is a complicated sport. It is a combat sport. I'm sure there's always danger in combat sports. Obviously, there's always danger of injury for sure. But as far as life-threatening injuries and traumatic brain injuries, well, that could change the rest of your life. Bare-knuckle is a blip on the radar in comparison to, you know, the more dangerous other combat sports that are there. But ultimately, like I said, the sport, in an overall sense, is safer. It's safer.
Yeah. Well, Paulie, before we let you go, this weekend, if you pick up the title, will you continue? What would be the goal from there? Is it pick up the title and sail off into the sunset, or is it keep going and you see yourself with a longer term future in this sport?
I'll tell you what, I'll take the same approach I took in my last fight. It hasn't been about the result. Yes, there's a goal in mind, of course, and then I'm closer to achieving it after having won my last fight. But my goal was to get myself in shape, get myself feeling better, execute the plan every single day, and arrive to fight night with an ability to execute a game plan on fight night, and then on fight night execute that game plan. And if all of those things are executed properly, the results should handle itself. At 45 years old, I don't think you take yourself all the time so seriously as far as long-term planning in a sport like this, right? Because, you know, you're not 25, you're 45, right? So you're here for a good time, not a long time. And I'd say that I'm here for a good time, not a long time. I just look at executing on Saturday night. If I execute, I think I get the job done. But I don't focus on the after. I don't focus on the result. I have to do it the way I'm supposed to do it. And if I do it the way I'm supposed to do it, I feel pretty confident that I get the result done, and I become world champion on Saturday night.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing you in action, and best of luck, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Right, that was Paulie Malignaggi talking about Fabio Wardley and Daniel Dubois, but also bare-knuckle. Johnny, what's your take on bare-knuckle?
Paulie's very articulate in regards to how he describes and explains as much as he possibly can. I go to many bare-knuckle events. It is brutal. If that's what you're going for, you're going to get everything and more. If it's not what you're going for, it's the last place you want to be. I think the governance needs improving. I think it will improve. But at the moment, there's a resistance because it's so brutal, so obvious. But when they start to improve the safety and care of fighters, then we'll see a change, or we'll see things being implemented. I actually find it exciting. You know, if you go to one of these events and the security are constantly telling everybody to sit down, it means people are on their feet thinking, oh my goodness, it's sharp, it's fast, it's on it. But it's brutal.
Yeah.
And it's not everybody's cup of tea. I'm surprised a lot of boxers go into bare knuckle.
Same.
Because it's a different pace. The skills you have that can set a man up with a jab, set him up with a combination, are out the window when you're getting there with a rough and rugged bare knuckle fighter that comes at you with pace, that throws shots that are not in the rule book. He just wants to hit you and hurt you. So you have to be an extremely good fighter, boxer, if you go into the world of bare knuckle and come out on top.
Yeah.
Not everybody can do it, and to me, it's different horses for different courses.
What do you take about him saying that it is less dangerous than boxing? And
I understand what he's saying. I understand the long-term effects may be less dangerous, but the short-term effects are obviously brutal. Paulie, I think he almost lost his sight for about a month. You know, so that's a risk. What if it didn't come back? So it's obviously brutal. Obviously there are effects there. And obviously I think it's got to affect you somehow down the line if you're in this day in, day out, day in. Boxing, it's a slow burning process. Brendan once said to me, he said, if you're in the ring sparring every day, say you do 5 rounds a day, and say for instance you get hit 10 times a round each time you spar. So that's 50 times a day you're getting hit in the head. That's 250 times a week. That's 1,000 times a year, 12,000 times a year. So you understand. So he's saying, why wouldn't you expect people to become brain damaged? So that's why training and preparation needs to be monitored and different. We body sparred most 80-90% of the time, and we only open sparred head and body when it came close to a fight. For the safety aspect of it, this is across the board. How do you prepare for a bare knuckle fight? Do you not spar at all? Are you sparring with gloves on? I don't know how they prepare, and I don't know enough about it. But the end result is far more brutal and spectacular than our sport, regardless of what we saw over the weekend.
Yeah. I actually caught up with Darren Till earlier, and I put some of those questions to him. So here's what he had to say.
You are going to be back in action, but slightly different this time. Bare knuckle. Talk to me about how that came about and why you decided to say yes to that.
Do you know what? I'm still wondering why I'm doing it now. I don't want to ruin a pretty face, but when I parted ways with Misfits on great terms, as I said, they just made me an offer I couldn't refuse, and obviously it's just another form of martial arts for me, and it's another thing to just see how I get on. You know, I've said to people, this could go so good or so bad. Obviously, it's gonna go so good. I'm confident in myself, but yeah, that's the reason, and let's try me under it and see where it goes.
But is there not a slight kind of apprehension for going into fight night, having not felt what it feels like to be punched bare knuckle? Like that first shot, you're probably gonna take a minute.
Yeah, I probably am. You know what though? I've had enough street fights in my life to know what a knuckle tastes like. So I've had a few I've had a few beatings in my time on the street. So I'm not a stranger, but yeah, I'm sure it'll be one of them things where you just have to adapt on the night. And I'm really good at that over the, I'm an experienced fighter, so I can adapt in situations under pressure. And Aaron made a comment saying all the pressure's on me, and all the pressure is on me. And that's what I do this for. I don't do this not for the pressure not to be on me. I love it. The more pressure, the better. I fight harder, fight better. So yeah, bring me more pressure.
Before we talk about Aaron, I want to talk about bare knuckle as a whole. I was talking to Paulie Malignaggi about bare knuckle, and we were discussing whether it is more dangerous or less dangerous than boxing and MMA. Where do you sit on the spectrum of that?
I think boxing is the most dangerous combat sport that ever was or will be, and my reasons for that are: you fight MMA, you have breaks, wrestling, grappling. With the boxing, it's 12 or 10 rounds or even 8 rounds of just constant, non-stop punches to the head. Now, you have your parts on, like, you have your jaw, your cheek, and this part here. This part's where it's most dangerous, and it's been studied, not to get factual, but it's been studied by the best doctors in the world. You think of how many shots you take of that as a professional boxer over the course of your career. that's just not in any way, shape or form healthy, and that will catch up to you sooner or later in life, whether you're 35, 40 or 45. You think of how many rounds these boxers spar, how many fights they've had over the course of being a pro, let's say 10, 15 years, you know, they're going to come out on the other side and there's going to be a few mini hints of trauma. And I've seen it firsthand. So for me, boxing's number one dangerous out of them all.
You've signed a multi-fight deal for bare-knuckle. Obviously, Aaron Chalmers is the first on that list. Why Aaron? And then also, what does the long-term future look like for you with bare-knuckle?
You know what? Aaron was just the first guy who accepted and who got put in front of me. The bare-knuckle told me a few guys declined, which I was like, wow, because all them guys did all really up for it. But when they said it was Aaron, I was like, wow, fair play. Like he's a smaller guy than me. He must have huge heart and a willingness to fight. So, you know, I've said I want to get in and out. I don't want to spend like 20 fights in the bare knuckle. As I said, you know, you don't want your face just being all mangled at the end. But if the offer keeps rolling in after these 3 fights, I'm happy enough to stay with them. And if everything goes to plan, you know, if I win a title in this bare knuckle, which I will, I don't see why we can't make a budding relationship over the years. So that could look, it could be an in and out job. It could be stay forever, or stay for a long time. Let's just see.
Look, we mentioned it slightly earlier about Dana White. I saw your tweet recently, obviously getting frustrated with the way that he answers questions and the questions that have been put to him. Can you just elaborate a little bit more about your frustration and what it is that has irritated you in regards to it?
Look, he's done amazing for the sport, and he's a great guy, but I feel like his ego's gotten too big, and when someone asks him a question he doesn't like, it's always the same. Who gives or he'll just answer it abruptly and just end like the conversation. If I was, you know, if you're a part of the media, you got to prod him. You got to go, no, we want answers. We want answers. Give us answers. That's my frustration with the moment at the UFC, and I feel like it's gone a bit lackluster.
Do you think Dana's emotionally kind of checked out of the UFC?
Yeah, I think Dana's got a few bosses now that tell him what to do, and they've made a TV deal, Paramount stuff. I think it's gone more commercialised, and I don't think Dana has the run of it how he used to. So we'll see where it goes. For me, as I said, UFC ain't what it used to be. For me, it's gone very lackluster, and I think we're lacking in stars as well.
That was Darren Till there speaking to us on The Hook. Quite interesting, his take on Dana White, saying that he's not been put hard questions by the media and he doesn't like answering hard questions. How do you compare that with the likes of Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren, who like to tackle things quite head on when it comes to the media?
Well, you can't really blame Dana. You blame the media. If you don't press, if you ask a question and you don't question the answer, it's the media's issue. And if they're thinking, oh, I've got an interview with Dana, I don't want to push it because I might not get an interview again, that is on the media. And because if you get someone in a situation such as Eddie's been in it, such as Frank's been in it, some people, they'll attack the source instead of answering the question. It's down to the media to put promoters under pressure. It's down to the media to say, right then, we're going to hold you to account. Because and the problem is, you know, when there's fights abroad or there's shows, and the promoter will say, right then, I'm going to pay for the hotels and accommodation of all the media, but you're not coming. You know, and so that's why the media fail to do their job. They fail to ask the questions that might get them blackballed. So I don't blame Dana. I think Darren Till's, you know, I think he's doing amazing. I go to a lot of his guerrilla promotions, and he's doing a great job. And he's somebody to look out for. But this is the responsibility of the media. If I can get away with not answering a question, I'm going to. It's your job to pressure me to say, we've got you here, we're here. We're corralling me into actually answering the question.
What do you make of, there's been stories over the last year or so about media that do touch on those subjects, getting accreditation denied and things like that. Do you think we should, or promoters or events should be able to deny access when people are covering their sport in a certain way?
I think they should be exposed. I think they should be exposed on the highest level, and the reason for exposing them. So if a promoter would ever say, I'm not giving you a pass because I don't like what you're asking me, fine. Do a report without your blessing. And they should be exposed, because if you name and shame, then obviously that area of invincibility, say, yeah, I'm a right kind of guy, it's gone. And so therefore, I understand it's like 6 to 1, half of the dozen of the other, but they've got to expose them if they're not in that position where they're not given the accreditation. But it's not done enough. So they'll keep getting away with it.
Okay, so enough of the promoters. Let's talk about the boxers themselves again. The heavyweight division, you mentioned it earlier. Tyson Fury obviously took to social media on the night of Fabio Wardley and Daniel Dubois to tease that he will be returning to the ring soon. One, are you surprised that Tyson took to social media on that night? And two, what do you think he's referencing?
It's his MO. It's his MO. I'm not surprised. It's his MO. Come on, we know what his MO is. It always happens. AJ fights anybody. It's a big fight. He's like, look at me. That's his MO. What's he referencing? Well, we don't know because realistically, you know, he's saying what's a warm-up fight before he fights Anthony Joshua, and Alexander Usyk puts something out calling him greedy belly. It's not that fight. So what is the fight going to be? What is it? What are the options? What is he shouting out? We don't know. Is it like hot air? We just don't know.
What does it need to be? Is there an expectation of it has to be a certain caliber, a certain level, or are we at the point where we just don't want any speed bumps to derail the Anthony Joshua fight?
And this is the problem. This was always the problem. So Anthony Joshua's fighting in July 25th, 26th. Tyson Fury's just boxed. Fury's thinking, I don't want to wait that long. I want another fight in between. Then he's going to need a rest. And AJ's going to say, well, I don't want to wait that long. And so it's like kicking the can down the road. So unless you get them both on the same bill, and Tyson Fury might say, I'm boxing on the same bill as AJ. He might say that. That could be the case. So I think there's too many egos there for that to happen. But then I don't know who they could put Tyson Fury in with and be sure that the AJ fight happens after that, because both guys are beatable now, and so it's a case of who they put him in with.
Oh, it better not happen again, that something derails it.
I'm still struggling, and I've always said, until I see both fighters on the same day say this is happening, I'm not believing it. I'm not the promoters. I want to hear Anthony Joshua say, yeah, this fight is happening. I want to hear Tyson Fury. We've heard Tyson Fury, but I want them both to say it on the same day. And when it's both done, AJ's the kind of guy that he's not going to dance or play those games. When a fight's on, he'll say, right, this fight's on, it's happening. He's not said it yet.
What did you make of Tyson Fury saying on social media, he was kind of atting Anthony Joshua by saying that Daniel Dubois has been in with all these really tough opponents and he's not been able to knock them down, but he did knock Anthony Joshua down and out. And he was almost alluding that AJ has no chin. Well, I think he was quite frankly saying that AJ has no chin.
Well, Tyson's goading Anthony Joshua, and when if this fight does happen between the two of them, mark my words, Tyson Fury will be ahead on points until they get in the ring. Because Tyson Fury's mouth is sharp, it's smart, it can be insulting, it can be crude. And Anthony Joshua's not that guy. And the words have started already. He's going to pick things out of mid-air, you've got knocked down, blah, blah. And AJ's got nothing to come back with. And he'll think, his word will be, I'll do my talking in the ring. Because Tyson Fury has far too much variety to his vocabulary when it comes to pulling the rug or intimidating or trying to take the mickey out of Anthony Joshua.
Yeah, Fury always does that. He tries to win the mental battle before they get into the ring. AJ, we've heard before that even on the nights of his fights, he's kind of spoken to other trainers and he said, oh, what do you think I should do on the night? And he's influenced by opinion and likes to take all of that information in. Do you think he is mentally strong enough to put the barrier down and not let Tyson's comments affect him in the
Well, I hope now with his relationship with Alexander Usyk, Usyk has taught him this lesson, because AJ, when he goes to seek counsel from everybody, he needs, and fighters, we look and say, you need boxing people around you. You need boxing people around you that what you're doing, you don't do that because you're showing weakness, you're showing, yeah, there's nothing wrong with getting knowledge, but don't ask Tom or Jack or Bill in the street. You know, you go to people that have done it, speak to people that can help you directly, because you seeking the opinions of anybody and everybody, regardless if you take it in or not, and you're just trying to be nice to make it as though you're interested. It's there, subconsciously it's there. So I think Usyk is a good influence for AJ. I think AJ has had to listen, he's had to learn, he's had to respect, and so in doing that, I'd be very surprised if he still does that. I'd be very, very surprised.
Yeah. Big fight on this weekend, Dave Allen versus Filip Hrgovic.
Yeah.
What do you make of that as a matchup?
Dave Allen is a proper hooligan, isn't he? He always wants to bite off something big. And you think, Dave, what is it about? Dave just loves to fight. He said, I know my limitations. I know what I'm about and what the biggest challenges out there. Dave is a very popular fighter, and he fought last time in Sheffield. He lost. And they carry him out like he was a hero. He was the man. Dave, and I've said it, I won't back down on what I've said. I said Dave should have packed in about 3 or 4 years ago because he gets hit far too often. Now he's in there to say, I love the sport, you know, give me the big fights, I'll give it my all. Dave is if you can't sleep on Dave Allen, you've got to go out there, you've got to be on your point. Now Hrgovic, I've seen him switch off mid-fight. And Dave, if he has the gears to take advantage of that, could do him. And believe it or not, Dave could take advantage of that and win a fight. So this one is a case of where Hrgovic is in his career. We know where Dave is. He's trained very hard. He works at one level. When he steps out of a certain level, he gets beaten. Hrgovic is a case of what version of him are we getting?
If Dave Allen wins it on the weekend, where does that catapult him to?
Puts himself in a position to as an opponent for everybody and anybody. Because you think Dave Allen, you don't expect much from him, but you know, he ticks the box. So he puts himself again in the driving seat.
Well, look, plenty of heavyweight action to come. We'll obviously next week be talking about Alexander Usyk and Rico Verhoeven as well, which will be an interesting fight in and of itself. But Johnny, thank you as always for coming in and discussing all things boxing with us. For you guys at home, make sure you like and subscribe and tune in next week to see what we have in store.